Good afternoon, peeps. You guys can welcome our two new moderators, Didgeridoo. Actually, Didgeridoo. I think that's how you pronounce it. Isn't that New Zealand? Didgeridoo. Clay's Pigeon. Both of them been with us for a long time. It was a long time coming. Face Diaper would have got a blue. Would have got one. But hell, I can't ever predict what he's gonna say. All right, I'm assuming my audio is pretty good. Just making that assumption, loud and clear. Thank you, Chad Benson. All right, we got a really good presentation, guys. You guys know I've been talking about doing been doing a critical analysis of this book, and that's what you're going to get. But I also like to give back. If I'm going to take something, which I'm about to do, I like to give back, because if we're going to expose information as being absolutely false, then it would be hypocritical to not provide the accurate information and the sources and where that accurate information can be found. And as soon as this video is over, I will upload a free PDF on Podia that's new charts, new visuals. It's something that any one of you can show any critic, anybody who wants to believe the Atlantis is 9,600. They can just look at this. It's all visual charts. It's amazing. And you know what? It is what it is. It's time to grow up as a community. It's time to put this Marvel comic version of history behind us, because history is already fascinating, and it's absolutely packed full of mysteries. We don't need to falsify history in order to make it interesting. It's already intriguing. I promise you, I have a whole library packed full of information that will blow your mind. And we don't need this comic book version of history anymore, especially when so many ancient authors already corrected these mistakes. This isn't some new interpretation of old material. These authors and many others that they follow, I mean, these guys, Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson, are not guilty of inventing these theories. They're only guilty of not doing the proper research to find out that these theories have already been smashed and buried centuries ago. Yeah, nothing new under the sun. We're going to get to it. So, a couple announcements. I should have talked to her right before I started this video. Maybe she can say something in the chat if she's in the chat right now. I think we have the venue set up in Tampa now for the Florida meetup. But you're gonna have to hear that from Dawn, because she told me about it and I looked at it and I really liked it. I got my approval. But I don't know if it's been set up, but it looks like it's Tampa, Florida. Not sure, but the Houston meetup, hey, we're already filling the room. Houston meetup's going to be a blast. It's going to be a round table. We're going to have Martin over here from the UK. You know, we're going to sit in a big old circle. We got a lot planned for that day. All right, so Houston meetup's coming up over a month from now. Florida meetup is right after that, and I heard a rumor. We're going to be on Virginia Beach right after that. I'm from what I heard, it was going to be like June or July. I'm not really sure. I don't know anything, guys. I just create content. Other people make all these decisions now. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. So, also, we're behind on our raffle schedule because we've already got all the books situated, everything. We got Donald Height is a supporter of Archaics and has been for quite a while. He was at the first meetup. He donated a whole box full of crystal daggers. I've got one in my other studio on display. I don't have one in here, but those are going in all the raffle bags. And at the meetup, when we do raffles, we'll be putting those crystal daggers. Yeah, Don got hers. Big John's got his. I got mine. They're pretty nice. He donated a whole box, and those are all going in the raffle bags as well, with books and Archaics merchandise and stuff. So let's see. And the only other announcement I really want to make before I start this presentation is, guys, just remember, don't get taken by anybody. Don't get taken. I am not on Facebook. All right. Also, be careful because my father my father's Facebook page has been duplicated as well by a fake account, and they're reaching out trying to get people. Listen, Jason of Archaics will never solicit you for anything. I will never contact you on social media. It's just not going to happen. I communicate by email, and I have 3 or 4 emails. So yeah, it's not going to happen. So Facebook and Instagram are not me. The guy's using my pictures, using my archaics. He's using all my stuff. He's reaching out, trying to talk to you. He's even engaging in the chat, pretending to be me. So he's probably some type of intelligent psyop that's trying to, guide people away from the real archaics data. Yeah, I can't imagine somebody spending full time just commenting and answering questions on Instagram and on Facebook. It blows my mind. I said, damn, is it that serious? So anyway, just remember, I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on Instagram. And anybody claiming to be or representing archaics, it's a fake account, guys. All right. I think that pretty much does my announcements.
So the Instagram and the Facebook guy, he's trying to sell crypto. And then the guy that's impersonating your father is trying to sell fake Social Security benefits.
Okay. If you guys didn't hear that, the fake accounts on Facebook and Instagram, he's just trying to sell crypto. The one that's now mimicking my dad on Facebook is trying to sell Social Security benefits. So anyway, I just want to get those announcements out the way. 99.9% of you guys are smart enough to know. This is for the 0.01% of the people out there who will fall for anything. So I don't even know why I'm even making these announcements. But you know what? Cover my bases. Cover my bases. All right. We'll get into this here in a minute. Move this around. So you have some new charts, new visuals, new presentation here concerning these materials. I've been busy. We got some awesome stuff. So now, in order for you to understand, a lot of people want to write books. They are absolutely unqualified. There are qualifiers to the publication of books. Now, I've been a published author since 2006, and it wasn't immediate at all. It wasn't immediate. As a matter of fact, I was in prison, even among the majors, the captains, lieutenants, chiefs of classifications, the wardens. I was an anomaly in prison. Here I am on one side, maximum security, always getting in trouble, but I'm level-headed, and I never gave the officers, I never gave administration any problems in that, but I'm a knucklehead on the cell block, but at the same time, I have an intellectual, serious side to me, and it kind of blew their minds that I had received multiple publishing contracts while I was a prisoner, and at first, I was met with resistance. In 2005, when it became known to me that a publisher was looking at my material, I was threatened by prison administrators, and at the time, they didn't understand what I was writing. I was writing about antiquities, the occult, the Bible, stuff like that. But at that time, they didn't really understand it, and I don't respond well to threats. I do like the exact opposite. If somebody is around me and tries to threaten me, I just go ahead and beat their ass. I've always been that way, and there is no yield or backup in me, and never has. And I've always gotten in trouble for it. I react very quickly. I'm just not going to let somebody run their mouth around me. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And yeah, I can be hot-headed, and I have my idiosyncrasies, like everybody else does. But in prison, that protected me a lot. And when it came to being threatened about that, I went to the law library and I used my acuity to I data mined the law library. I found all the relevant case law for the circuit that Texas belongs to out of New Orleans. I found all the Supreme Court law, and I found even the state statutory law. I looked through all the tort proceedings that I could find that were relevant on the topic, and I put together an amazing brief, and I slapped the warden with it. And I told the warden straight up, I said, listen, man, this right here is just preliminary. It's not even legal. I haven't filed it, but my family has it now. I said, listen, I have a Texas statutory and a constitutional right to enter into business relations, even as a convicted felon. I can have books published, and I can contract with any publisher that contacts me. So I showed him the case law, did all that, and they backed off. Now I had a conversation in a coffee with administrators explaining what type of things I write about, and then they were cool. Everybody was cool because I'm not trying to expose what's going on in the prison system. The prison system is corrupt as hell, but it wasn't my duty. I didn't feel like I was obligated to let the public know what was really going on inside of prisons. Tremendous amount of wealth, a lot of money. Taxpayers are funneling into prisons for prisoners to have all these things, and prisoners get none of that stuff. Yeah, guys, it's a lot. We didn't have air conditioning. I spent 26 years in prison. I never seen an air conditioner. Yeah, don't believe that myth. We don't have TVs in the cells. I didn't have any of that. So, anyway, aside from all that, it took a lot for me to get published as a prisoner, but I secured 5 publishing contracts while I was incarcerated. The 5th book didn't get published till after my release. So, I have a special interest when I see garbage put out there, and I can go through a book and I know where your source. I know what you're doing. It's very obvious to me. Billy Carson's first book, to me, looked just like it was somebody who went through and copy and pasted from about 50 or 60 Facebook posts. See, Billy and I have a history that you guys don't know about because I've never told you. He may not even know. But years ago, before Billy got big, years ago, Billy had like 20 something Facebook groups all about the Anunnaki, ancient mysteries, and all that. And this is where he got a lot of his information. Billy Carson is Facebook educated. Do not believe that Harvard, MIT BS. He's got little certificates that anybody can get in the mail. I mean, even in New Mexico, you can write this organization and take their little $30 course, and they'll send you. You're able to marry people, and you're able to be a reverend and all that stuff. It's the same stuff. It's no different. So I used to try to educate Billy when I saw all these posts putting out the wrong information. I was not welcome. Archaics became a Facebook group because I was kicked out of all of Billy's groups. This is what happened. I used to try to educate them and say, hey guys, look, the SHAR system is wrong. This is how these ancient dating systems work. And look how it all lines up with secular history. It's all perfect. And I tried to show them from different species of analysis how to get to the truth, and that this SHAR dating of hundreds of thousands of years was already disproven 2,000 years ago. And yet nobody wanted to listen. Man, they blocked me. And basically, I got to the point where I couldn't get any relevant groups that were talking about this, because everywhere I showed up, they just blocked. Their mods just started blocking and blocking. So that gave rise to Archaic's Facebook group. That's how that happened. So just so you guys know the history here. This is years before I ever had a YouTube channel. So yeah, so everything that my incessant criticism of Mr. Carson, and now Matt LaCroix, his little sidekick, it comes from a long period of time ago, guys, when they essentially silenced me, and they did it good. Didn't take them long to block me out of every one of those groups. So we're going to start with the Epic of Humanity. Now, I don't even have to be objective, because all I'm going to do is just unleash data on you. That's the best way to do it. I can remove my own opinion and just show you the correct information. And that's what this video is about. This is what we're going to do. So this is the Epic of Humanity. It's a real all-encompassing title. But you're going to see otherwise. This is embarrassing. It's worse than the Emerald Tablets book for many reasons I'm going to show. So let me read something to you.
You look like you needed a refresher.
How's this happening?
What? I can be here.
When'd you get here?
I don't know, earlier sometime. I thought you saw me.
I've been Mandela'd.
Mandela, come on now.
Hey, man, thank you. All right. Okay, so here's what Billy Carson and Matt LaCroix claim in the beginning of their book. All right. This book includes the largest collection of ancient text ever contained in a single book that includes Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Egyptian, Gnostic, Greek, and more. Now, that's a big claim, guys, for a small book. But we're going to go into the detail. We're going to see how far off that claim really is. So, that one claim really kind of makes me want to show you something out of my library. This is volume 1 and volume 2 of a single book. Now, just this book right here has hundreds of citations from Near Eastern texts from over 1,000-year period, from about 18 or 19 different ancient libraries. Just this one book right here completely disproves what you see here. They should have never said that. The largest collection of ancient texts, just this disproves it right there. And so does this one book. This is out of my library from 1901. This is nothing but Babylonian and Assyrian and ancient Armenian, which I'm going to do some videos on. But ancient Armenian tablet text. I mean, here's one, Izdubar, the legend of Izdubar. Not even mentioned by Billy Carson at all. As a matter of fact, Ishtar and the 12 gates, not even mentioned. So many epics in this book. And this is beautiful. I love these old books because the way they do these front covers, I love these old books. But this one book from way before Billy Carson or Matt LaCroix or myself were even born already disproves that the very first statement they make in their book is disproven by this right here. My first published book is, look at the difference in the print between my book, which has more pages, and their book, which puts a lot of air between the lines. Do you see the difference? Mine's packed. Not only that, but we have a problem, because if you're going to make a statement like the largest collection of ancient text ever contained in a single book, but your book does not have a bibliography, it doesn't even have an index, we have a problem. My very first published book, my bibliography has already, this is 2006, my bibliography alone has already disproven their statement. This is page 1 of my bibliography. Page 1 of my bibliography has 2 times more texts that are mentioned in this entire book. This is embarrassing. I told you this is going to be embarrassing. Before I get to the real juicy, I have to itemize these facts. Page 2, page 3 of my bibliography. Yeah, guys, this is somebody wants to walk around like a chicken with their chest sticking out, talking about, I'm a published author, I did this, I've published 2 or 3 books. But when you analyze and look at the books, they're absolute garbage. Garbage. And anytime Billy Carson wants to debate just the facts about his books as opposed to real books, I'm willing to do that as well. Yeah, man, that's the 4th page of my bibliography. Just my final page, the smallest page, has more books than their entire book mentions. It's embarrassing, guys. Their book is 5 chapters. Not only is there a bibliography, but I have a chapter by chapter index where you can see every book I've ever cited and go straight to the page. So if I cited a book on my shelf right here, you can pull it out and you can go straight to the page where that data is. You need that. This is why Billy Carson's books are self-published. This is why you see this at the bottom of his books. It says forbidden knowledge on the bottom. Why? Because no legitimate publisher worth their metal is going to waste their time with this. That's why. But we're gonna go into it. Somebody else has recently come on my radar. Paul Wallace, best-selling author of The Eden Conspiracy. Well, I'm gonna have to be the judge of that, because Paul Wallace not only endorses Billy Carson, but what he says about Billy Carson and Matt LaCroix and their ability to translate all this stuff is just patently untrue. So Paul Wallace is now on the list. Now, somebody that I kind of like, but now I'm going to keep my distance from. I have 2 of his books, but Brian Forrester is endorsing this book. I'm wondering if Brian has even read this book. But you know what? You can convey that to Mr. Forrester. He's lost points with me for even endorsing this drivel, and you're going to understand why as this video progresses. Of course, Eric Von Daniken would. They're all in the same club. It's just crazy, guys. So, book makes a lot of claims. It does make a lot of claims, but we're going to get into it. Make sure my chat, before I just start spitting these facts, I need to make sure my audio's still going strong. Yeah, I'm kind of distressed about Brian Forster now. I had plans, and I've talked about it because I have 2 of his books, and I'm writing a book right now on the Technolithic period, 3439 BC to 2239 BC, the Technolithic period. All the archaeology that shows sophistication that far exceeds the Heliolithic period, which was post-cataclysm. And Brian Forster's pictures and information was some of the stuff I was going to use because he shows the high tolerances that are found in the machine stonework. But you know what? Oh, man. It's guilt by association with me. That shit ain't cool. You guys will get my attitude. You'll understand by the time we're done with this video. I hadn't even started telling you what's in the book. So, okay. Give y'all some rapid stats about this book. But there's 5 chapters in the book. 3 of those chapters were written by Matt LaCroix. 2 of those chapters were written by Billy Carson. But we have a problem even with that, because while I'm telling you the truth, there's also something patently untrue about what I just said, and you're going to understand as I go. So, Matt wrote chapters 1 and 2, which is a total of 77 pages. Billy wrote chapter 3, which was 45 pages. Matt wrote chapter 4, which is 36 pages, and Billy wrote the last chapter, chapter 5, which is 15 pages. But it's not that simple. Here's the breakdown. Matt wrote a total of 3 chapters for a total of 113 pages. Billy wrote 2 chapters for a total of 60 pages. Huge difference between 113 pages and 60 pages. So even this isn't quite accurate. Chapter 1, 5 pages of content are nothing but ads, pictures, and citations of texts. And I was very liberal. I gave them, you got block citations. They add up in space to where you're really not writing near as much as you convey that you're trying to convey that you are. It's easy to say I wrote a 350-page book. But did I? When 65 pages are translations of ancient texts that I'm showing you, and ads, and all kinds of other weird stuff all thrown in there, I didn't really write that much. So here we have chapter 1 has 5 pages of content that are ads, pictures, and citations of text. Chapter 2 has 8 pages of pictures, citations, and text. Chapter 3 has 22 pages. One chapter. Chapter 3 has 22 pages of pictures, citations of text. That's how much stuff, filler was just thrown in there. Chapter 4 has 3 pages of pictures and citations of text. Chapter 5 has 2 pages. It had the least, but it's also only a 15-page chapter. So, taking this data, here's what we find. Matt LaCroix contributed 97 solid pages of content. Billy Carson contributed 36 pages, but they're not solid content because Billy doesn't actually write anything. Billy did not contribute in this book at all until page 112. On page 112 to 114, when he then copy and pastes his Thoth material from his previous book. Billy's chapter 3 is full of copy and paste facts about different religious texts as if these texts advance his theories. Now, I'll give you an example. He mentions he has a huge block letters that say the Mahabharata. Then he has the encyclopedic definition of what the Mahabharata is, but there's nothing here that explains how the Mahabharata advances his thesis at all. Yeah, he did this with his first book too, just throwing a whole bunch of facts in there that really don't have anything to do with what you're talking about, but it makes you look smart. But a real intelligent person, a real intelligent trier of fact will go through the material and realize he just threw a bunch of filler in there. So now he simply lists a bunch of random ancient texts, but does not explain how these further his position. On page 117, he does this again, and on page 118 through 121, Billy simply lists 4 megalithic temples and then 3 pyramids as if these are proof of whatever his thesis is purporting. But he doesn't explain how any of this is relative. He just says, here's the Great Pyramid, here's what the Great Pyramid is. This is what Stonehenge is and where it's located. This is what Hagar Kim is and where it's located on Malta. Nothing to support his thesis. He's just throwing all this in there. It's like he just copy and pasted a bunch of encyclopedias and threw them in there and called it a book. It's bad. It's that bad, guys. Yeah. My arguments right here, what I'm telling you, will hold up in a court of law. Because if anybody was to try and say I'm slandering their material, their work, and we go to court, because believe me, I got the money for attorneys. If we go to court, any judge will side with me any day of the week. This is how you break down data. This is how anybody can see what you're saying is telling the truth. So this goes deep, guys. I'm barely even scratched the surface. So now, on page 121, he lists the 4 Vedas, and then continues these lists of Vedic gods and lists of aspects of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And it all sounds good if that's why you bought the book, to learn what all the different ancient texts in the world are. So there are 2 paragraphs of writing on page 127, and then more lists about the Anunnaki and their roles. Uh-oh. Sorry about that, guys. Let me turn that down. Turn that all the way off. All right. So in essence, I'm going to tell you, it's on pages 129 to 130, he concludes with 3 paragraphs. He actually wrote these paragraphs, you can tell. Now, to finish his chapter, a whole chapter of nothing but copy and paste. So Billy first appears in chapter 3, which is packed with 43 pages of pictures, citations, and filler, and only 2 pages of actual writing. The entire chapter only has 2 pages of content that Billy actually wrote. Chapter 3, his first appearance in the book. So Billy basically packed his chapter with filler. This means Billy contributed 17 pages of actual writing in the entire book. 17 pages is Billy's, and anybody can count it up the same way I did. As a matter of fact, you may not be as liberal as I was. 17 pages is what Billy contributed to this book to get his name put first on the book, right here. While Matt LaCroix contributed 97 pages of solid content. He wrote 97 pages. Now, seen another way, Matt LaCroix contributed 83.5% of this book is Matt LaCroix. Doesn't mean to here nor there. I'm not impressed with either one of them. So this also means that a book numbered at 188 pages actually has only 99 pages of original content. So the book could have been 100 pages. So it has 99 pages of original content and 89 pages of ads, reviews, and filler. That's what it has. That does not advance the thesis, pictures and long citations of ancient texts, and virtually no commentary to explain why did you just spend 3 pages citing this epic, and then there's no commentary explaining how it advances your thesis. Yeah, so Moving on. You guys know, I already told you the book has no bibliography. Billy mentions 15 ancient texts. 15 ancient texts, right here. This book right here, Billy mentioned the Epic of Gilgamesh, Atrahasis Epic. Matter of fact, I have a copy of the Atrahasis Epic somewhere. I got copies of everything. Yeah. Here's my copy of the Atrahasis Epic right here. For those of you who, I know some of y'all don't really understand. Listen, these are what these epics look like. This is the Atrahasis Epic. So it's a bunch of pieces of tablets like that. So Billy mentions the Epic of Gilgamesh, Atrahasis Epic, Sumerian King List, Tablet of Shamash, the Myth of Adapa, Death of Bilgamesh, Legend of Etana, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Tibetan Book of the Dead, and the Four Vedas. Guys, he only provides commentary on 3 or 4 of these. The rest of these are just mentioned or copy and paste, as if you didn't know what the Tibetan Book of the Dead was about. If you don't know, there's a paragraph in this book. It's filler. Billy Carson will tell you he got it from somewhere else. So same thing with the Mahabharata, same thing with the Egyptian Book of the Dead, same thing with the Bhagavad Gita. I don't believe Billy Carson read these books. But if you read my Chronicon, you will see why I cited whole passages out of these books. Because when I was in prison, I did read them. I didn't have anything else to do. So guys like me who have verifiable publishing histories and extensive ones, we get offended when we see this Sesame Street version of history, very poorly put together. Yeah, man. And then walk around the city talking about you're a published author. Yeah, this should have never been a book. This should have been a few Facebook posts at most. Yeah, it's crazy. So that's what Billy did. Now, Matt LaCroix cited the Secret Book of John, a Gnostic, I think it's from the Nag Hammadi Library, the Enuma Elish, the Pyramid Texts, Uruk list of kings and sages. He cites Diodorus Siculus. He doesn't cite passages. He just one sentence here and there. So, and not to his credit, Matt LaCroix cites the Emerald Tablets of Billy Carson. So, yeah, it's terrible. Altogether, I think there may be 21. There may be 21 or 22 texts in here. And I'm telling you now that at least 10 of them are filler. They don't contribute anything. They're just mentioned just so they can say they mentioned a bunch of ancient texts. But they didn't mention a bunch of ancient texts. There's only 21 or 22 books in here, period, cited at all. So I do not know, I don't know what universe these guys are living in to have opened up the beginning of their book with, this book includes the largest collection of ancient texts ever contained in a single book that includes Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Egyptian, Gnostic, Greek, and more. That's embarrassing. Hell, you know what? I got this book here. This book right here. Pre-flood world. Packed full of charts. Look at all that text. Small print. This is a huge book. Full of charts. Yeah. This book cites way more Near Eastern ancient texts than Billy Carson's book does. This book was written over 10 years ago by me, and it's a history of the pre-flood world, and it corrects the Anunnaki chronology and shows you the shars, or the counting of the turnings of the stars. And it took one turning to equal one day. Yeah, it's all here. It's all here. So, now let's get into the book. I didn't give you my rant. Let's get into the book. Yeah, 21. I think the total is 21. I wrote my notes right here, 21. I couldn't find any more than 21 ancient texts mentioned in this whole book. All right, my rant's over. We're gonna get into the actual things they claim now. That's right, Jahara. That's some Galactic Federation publishing BS. Okay, Epic of Humanity. Oh, I'm going to show you guys some evidence that Mr. Carson's been looking at my material. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing in this video as well. I've already seen emails from people showing me different things, but you know what? It's in the back of this book. Three pieces of data in the back of this book let me know that man's been listening to me. You already know. He's not giving anybody credit. All right, let's see. Let's do it. All right, where we got here? Page 13. Page 13 and 16. This is all Matt here. So Matt starts off talking about the Sumerian king list. And Matt's really impressed with the fact that Eridu, Alulim, became king and ruled for 28,800 shars. Matt LaCroix is amazed that a Sumerian king lived for 28,800 shars. That's crazy. Because right now, I'm 18,000 turnings of the stars old, and give or take some. But Matt LaCroix is really impressed that this king ruled for 28,800 years, and another one 36,000 years, and another one in Minliwana 43,200 years, and another one 28,800 years in Galana. And then Dumuzi, the shepherd, another 36,000 years. It's crazy. So Matt LaCroix is he's really impressed by the Sumerian king list deal, and he makes some statements that I'm going to have to correct. First, Marquez veterans, you already know, and we're going to show the charts and we're going to show the visuals in this video, but you already know those are turnings of the stars. Those men only don't live 60 to 90 years apiece. That's all those numbers convey. You take every single one of those numbers and you divide it by the ancient Sumerian year, which was sexagesimal, 6 times 60. It was a 360-day year that involved 360 turnings of the stars. It's that simple. So Matt mentions Eridu and Bad Tabira and Larak and Sipar and Shurapak. And I don't know why, Facebook is really toxic because they'll present things as fact that just not. But this is what Matt says after listing off these impossible ages of the Sumerian king list, which we've corrected in Archaics. Notice how each one of these cities mentioned in these tablets perfectly mirrors the other, which we know were all real locations that have been well documented and shown on numerous maps. These cities are referred to as the pre-Diluvian cities of Mesopotamia, meaning before the flood. All right, it's hard I'm going to have to get through this next statement. In fact, the ruins of the city of Eridu can still be found left abandoned in the desert of Iraq. All right. Matt LaCroix is not qualified to be talking about Near Eastern antiquities. This is why. One, no one should be in a teaching position over others if they're ever going to try and convey that kings in this world lived for tens of thousands of years. Now they try to justify this. Billy does too. They try to justify this that this was like divine, godlike, super hyper intelligent, so technologically sophisticated, angelic Anunnaki DNA. And listen, I don't care what kind of DNA it is. I know that I'm 50 years old and I've almost died by accident about a dozen times in my life. And I know that I've almost been killed about a dozen times in my life. Now, mine's going to be more than most is because I was in prison for a long time. But we're all in the same boat. We've walked away from accidents that we shouldn't have walked away from. No one who lives 28,000 years is going to be able to do it because is mathematically improbable that every century you live, the amount of accidents that they're going to accrue. They're not going to go away. You can't predict these type of things. Things just happen. And there's no way you'll ever get me to believe that somebody who could live that long, 28,000 years, could have survived that long without accidents killing him at least half a dozen times. It's too long. It's too long. So accidents, cataclysms, rocks falling out the sky, stepping in the wrong place and falling off a cliff, a murder, poison, some type of disease. Stop it, man. That's comic book version of history. When the real interpretation is so simple. Shars is counting the turnings of the stars. That's all it is. And that's what makes 28,000. I'll tell you right now, real quick. A king mentioned in Atlanta, 28,800 divided by 360 turnings of the stars is real simple. That was an 80-year-old right there. Real simple. Occam's razor helps us understand the Near Eastern stories and makes them and puts them into a human context and gets them out of that Marvel version, Nickelodeon pinwheel version of history. It's crazy. So here's something he said is wrong, absolutely wrong. We know were all real locations that have been well documented. That's not true. It's not true. You see, Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson believe the Great Flood was the Younger Dryas era, and it was 12,000 years ago. They've both said this and published this widely. And yet at the same time, these are pre-flood cities. So Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson are trying to get you to believe that there are ancient ruins in the Near East that are still there as ruinous heaps being excavated by archaeologists 12,000 years after those cities were destroyed by a flood. Yeah, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, there's about a 6,500 year gap in history here for which we have no archaeology. And then all of a sudden we have cities that were destroyed. Now, the Eridu mound that is in the Near East was only named Eridu later by those who discovered it in memory of an earlier Eridu. Here's what Billy Carson and Matt LaCroix don't understand. The ancient Sumerian stories could have never happened in the Near East. They mention mountain ranges. The city of Bad-Tabira in the Sumerian Pentapolis was a mining city. And the Sumerian records are talking about the extraction of ores and metals and men working mines. None of those things exist in the Near East. There are no mountains in the Near East. There are no mines in the Near East. The Tigris-Euphrates basin, where all these cities, where all the Near Eastern cities, where Calneh and Babylon and Ur and Uruk and Assyria and Ashur had all developed, are all post-cataclysm. Pre-cataclysm location of the Sumerian people is unknown. Another thing Billy and Matt totally conveniently ignore, but is known by the scholars, is that there are no original Anunnaki or Sumerian records. None. They do not exist. Any mentions of Anunna and Anunnaki are centuries after those cultures vanished. There are no original writings. There are no original texts. None. This is why the Babylonian and Akkadian story sounds so comical and so mythological. It is a post-cataclysmic society remembering things from a technological society that had been disappeared in a cataclysm. Total systemic infrastructure collapse. Centuries later, they're writing all these oral traditions, but now they sound comical and they sound primitive. This is what we have to work with, these primitive frames of reference. So none of the stories about the Anunnaki and the Anunna even happened in the Near East. They happened in ancient Turkey. So Anatolia, Hittite area. So that's where all the mountains and mines are. That's where the underground cities are, like Derinkuyu. That's where that's where all the tepe sites were, which are the walled enclosures that in the Sumerian records are called the Edens. That's where everything, the Catalhuyuk, after the Edens, the Huyuk sites. Yeah, the Huyuk sites date after the tepe sites. The tepe sites are just like the old Akkadian records report. These walled enclosures, these Edens were set up, and mankind was not allowed in them. They were banished into the earth to toil the ground. And it wasn't Adam and Eve, it was the Adamu in the Near Eastern texts. So anyway, this is all untrue. Matt LaCroix says these locations are known and they are well documented. They're not well documented. I have encyclopedias on the Near East right here. I've been looking everywhere. Where is Shurapak? Where is Sippar? Where is Bad Tabira? Where is Larak? No one knows. If the scholars don't know, then Matt LaCroix doesn't know either. So yeah, it's crazy. Just crazy. Now, Mr. LaCroix wants to use the tablet of Shamash to hammer in his point, but it doesn't support his point because the tablet of Shamash is about Shamash. Shamash did not appear until the vapor canopy collapsed at the Great Flood. It was in 2239 BC. And in text, it specifically mentions Nabu. Nabu is a post-cataclysm god of Babylon. He was a patron god of Babylon, of writing. Nabu did not belong to the Anunnaki gods. Nabu was a patron god, a local god in Babylonia centuries after the cataclysm. This is what the Tablet of Shamash is about. This is what dates the gods that are mentioned actually date the text. This is not supporting Matt LaCroix's argument at all. This shows that at the very earliest, the Tablet of Shamash would have been 19th century BC. That's at the very earliest, but that's not how old this tablet is. The tablet's actually from the 10th or 11th century cuneiform. But we're giving him license because we know that in the 10th century and 11th century, they were dealing with copies of older cuneiform tablets. And those copies come from the 19th, 18th, and 17th century, before the Ogaijian deluge in 1687 BC. So I will give him that. But the problem is, I can't give him nothing beyond the 19th century BC when he's reaching out and grabbing 12,000 years ago. You can't date these events in 12,000 years ago if you're going to use a tablet right here that's only talking about as early as the 19th century BC. So it's little things like this jump off the page on me. Make sure everything's good. Make sure, let's see. All right. All right, we're still moving. Good. We got a lot of ground to cover. I got some awesome visuals to show you. But I got to get through this little book. There's not much to the book, so the book will be fast. So let's see, page 22. So Matt asks you to imagine. Hold on, that's not Matt. No, is it Matt? Yeah, that's still the first chapter. Matt asks you to imagine that the earth is 13. Imagine the earth 13,000 years ago in the midst of an ice age. The northern half of Europe, Asia, and North America is buried by one. Okay. So he says this time period was known as the Pleistocene, Younger Dryas epochs, in which violent catastrophes occurred between 12,800 and 10,000 years ago, leading to a rapid melting of the ice caps, global floods, devastating earthquake and volcanic activity, and massive wildfires across the planet. These disasters, commonly referred to as the Younger Dryas. Now, this is beyond the historical record. I'm not going to say it didn't happen, but that's 12,000 years ago, and we have no way to verify that. I'm not a uniformitarian, and I already know that potassium-argon dating, ice core dating, dendrochronology, specifically carbon-14 dating, have all been disproven, and by scientists. They say it's all bogus. So this Younger Dryas period, it concerns Ice Age. Most people don't know this. You think Ice Age is a fact. In the scientific parts, it's still a theory. Why? Because there's 60 different versions. They can't figure out which one's right. There's too many unknowns. And anybody who is a good researcher understands you can't use two unknowns, put them together, and try to claim that you have learned anything at all. It doesn't work that way. The Younger Dryas period. This is pure Graham Hancock version of BS right here. This is he's heavily influenced by that. But I'm going to admit here that this wasn't unexpected. But this is exactly what you would find. This is exactly what you would find in this type of book. Now, I'm going to tell you that in the historical record, we know the exact same thing happened in 3895 BC. What he just described as happening happened also in 3439 BC. The first one was the great Adam and Eve reset caused by the Phoenix. The second one was in 3439 BC, which was exactly 432,000 turnings of the stars, before Phoenix reappeared in 2239 BC to initiate the Great Flood, collapse of the vapor canopy, the day the sky fell, and the time when the Shar count was basically lost. So all these cataclysms, volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, all the stuff that they're mentioning, listen, we don't need anything that happened in 12,000 BC to fulfill history, because all that happened in 3895 BC, 3439 BC when Enki appeared, in the Gihon flood, again in 2239 BC in the Noahic flood, 552 years later again in the Ogygian flood, mentioned by everybody. I got 5 videos on it. The Ogygian flood, all that stuff happened again. And then again in 1135 BC when Atlantis was destroyed and the Great Mediterranean Dark Age began. 350 years that every Near Eastern scholar knows about. Y'all know about the Great Mediterranean Dark Age. So we don't need 12,000 years for all this BS. We have all those same catastrophic events in our own time period. And I've shown them on my channel ad infinitum. There's just too much. So I will say this. I have a gem on my channel somewhere, but it wasn't presented right. It was done wrong. And I'm going to have to redo it because most people didn't pick up on what was being laid down. You see, I have a video on the cyclical deluge theory of 1871 that was suppressed almost instantly because it shows that the tsunami of destruction that destroys the northern hemisphere always comes from Antarctica. It's why some of the elite are preparing to brace for impact in Antarctica now, while others are bedding down in the underworld. If you guys want, I'll do another video on the topic. But what this scientist found and published in 1871 perfectly explains how the world is destroyed in these cycles. It doesn't matter if it's the Nemesis X object that does it. It doesn't matter if it's the dark satellite or if it's the Phoenix phenomenon. These are just trigger mechanisms, but it's the same thing that happens. It's not going to be popular with people who believe that we live on a globe. In fact, living on a globe completely nullifies the premise. However, this scientist showed 100% proof after proof after proof after proof that a tidal wave from the ice walls of Antarctica periodically crashes toward the equator, goes over the equatorial bulge, then floods all of the northern hemisphere, and then drains back out. And he shows the geology all over the world, supported with geography, that's exactly the case. He shows the extinction level events. He shows the fossil record. This man in 1871 was silenced quick because all the uniformitarians were funded. I already did a video on it, but it wasn't presented right because that was an open discussion with other people, and it lost a lot of its information integrity. So if you guys want to, I'll do it real quick. I'll represent it, or I can wait a while. But cyclical deluge theory, 1871, is the real deal. Explains everything. It's part of the Phoenix phenomenon. But it's but we don't need the Younger Dryas at all. So I still think this first chapter was still Matt LaCroix. So Matt LaCroix says that after looking at the Uruk list of kings and sages and the Sumerian king list, he says, listen to this. I capped the timeline at 200,000 years. However, I fully recognize that some of this dating is potentially older than that. My God, I'm losing IQ points. Losing IQ points. All right. That's because he believes Shar means year. That's because he's made the same mistake so many other people have made, without actually doing serious academic research and finding out that the scholars have already corrected the problem. So page 39. Is this still Matt? Yeah, still Matt. This is still Matt. Chapter 1's long. Matt put a lot in it. So here's another anachronism that just doesn't make sense. So in Matt's version here, he says that, listen to this. The information contained within the Epic of Gilgamesh helps to bridge an important gap between understanding the events that occurred both before and after the deluge. We learn that Gilgamesh is a post-Diluvian king of the city of Uruk, and that Utnapishtim was a pre-Diluvian king of the city of Shuruppak. This provides evidence to back up the conclusions presented in my timeline regarding the different epics or dynasties that occurred with these cultures, and how some, such as the Sumerians, were often separated by thousands of years. There could be no more untrue statement. It does not support. As a matter of fact, the Epic of Gilgamesh completely disproves Matt LaCroix's position that the flood was 12,000 years ago. 100%. Yeah, I don't even know why. I don't even know why these guys aren't really doing the homework. Listen, scholars date the Epic of Gilgamesh to about 1500 BC. But they admit that the events and the life of Gilgamesh, his real name is Bilgamesh, but he's come to be known as Gilgamesh. But they admit that the epic concerns a lifespan of someone who lived about 500 years earlier. 1,500 years BC plus 500 years is 2,000 BC. That's only 4,000 years ago. That's not that long ago. Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson want you to think that the Epic of Gilgamesh is describing the Great Flood at 12,000 BC. But scholars and academics are convinced Gilgamesh lived around 2,000 BC. So Utnapishtim, who survived the flood in 12,000 BC, is suddenly in 4,000 BC schooling Gilgamesh 8,000 years later? Come on, guys. Come on, man. Let's go to page 60. Let's go to page 60. Yeah, don't be allergic to that like button. All right, so page 60 is Matt. It's still Matt. Okay, here's another anachronism. Page 60. This is Matt. The earliest mention of the Osiris myth came from what are known as the pyramid texts, which are an ancient set of hieroglyphs that were found on the subterranean walls of the pyramids of Teti and Unis, and several of the other pyramids in Saqqara region of Egypt. Yeah, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. These writings were broken up in segments known as utterances. Now, I agree with that. Which each tell the story of what occurred during that time period. Now, my only problem with this is Egyptologists also are guilty of this. They try, when it says pyramid text, it automatically, and they try to throw Saqqara in there. Listen, guys, there are no writings that have ever been found inside the pyramids of Giza at all. But they'll try to make you think that by calling it pyramid texts. These are pyramids that were built way after the Great Pyramids of Giza. Now, these texts, though, we know the dating. It's really easy. It's really easy to date that because the Osiris cult. The Osiris cult is perfectly dated by academia. But the problem here is Matt LaCroix is trying to associate Osiris with being Etana of Sumer. And according to Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson, Etana is 12,000 years ago, before the Great Flood. However, they're trying to associate Osiris with Etana. Do you see the problem here? Because academia is convinced that the Osiris cult only dates to about the 21st century BC at the earliest. You see the problem? Again, we're dealing with an 8,000 year lacuna in time. Doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Osiris was not Etana. It just could. Yeah. You can't just fill in 8,000 years of no history by misapplying a calendrical system and claiming hundreds of thousands of shars was hundreds of thousands of years. It's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Go to page 66. Moving through the book. The name Atrahasis means exceedingly wise and was written from the perspective of a past king who ruled over the city of Shuruppak in Sumer just before the events of the Great Deluge. Here's another problem. Oh, and he even says 12,000 years ago. Who said that? Is that Matt Steele? Hey, Billy, when you ever going to get in here? It's Matt again. Still Matt. So, I just showed y'all the Atrahasis epic. I just showed you guys the Atrahasis epic. So, the Atrahasis epic, this right here. These are not. I'm sorry, guys, but this is not 12,000 years old. Even the scholars, even the different translators and the commentators, they tell you straight up. This is only like 4,000 years old. These are only 4,000 years old. They're not 12,000 years old. This is the Atrahasis epic. Nowhere in the Atrahasis epic does it even attempt to date itself 12,000 years in the past. That's these guys doing that. The Atrahasis epic's not. That's the Graham Hancock version. Trying to throw everything back to the Younger Dryas. Yeah, man. Guys, I found a piece of a pottery shard next to a red rock. That red rock looks like that ochre from the Younger Dryas period. I think that little piece of pottery shard is 12,000 years old. Oh my God. It's amazing. It's amazing. Oh. One of my little genius video ideas. I had a video idea and I lost it. Now I remember. I need to do this video. Yeah. This video here, archaics minus sim theory. I've been wanting to do that. I'd lost this. It was in this book. All right. I'm going to do a video explaining all the tenets of archaics and how you can remove simulation theory from the equation. It's not needed. Every one of my data sets stand alone. Simulation theory is my personal conclusion based off a myriad of data sets that cannot make sense to me in a world without simulation theory. But I don't need simulation theory to prove my points. So, now, 77. This is Matt again. So, according to Matt, because the shar means year, according to Matt, after 3,600 years of grueling labor, the Igigi gods revolted and demanded relief from hard work. The number 3,600 is important to consider, as it later became used as a means to measure time by the Sumerians, which was called a shar. This is how the long range shown in the Sumerian king list were calculated and recorded. Modern academics often criticize the translations done of the Sumerian king list, claiming that human beings could never have lived as long as it states. However, those who study this information know that these ancient kings were part of a very specific royal bloodlines that could be traced directly back to the Anunnaki. Not only that, but the long reigns and dating mentioned in the Sumerian king list also matches up precisely with the king list recorded by the Babylonian high priest known as Berosus. This is one of the reasons the Anunnaki were called gods. I'm going to show you some visuals of what scholars and academics have done decoding Berosus that completely tears apart everything this man just said. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, guys. Yeah, what the true history here is not 3,000. Nobody is a slave for 3,600 years. Come on, I'm only 50 years old. I've had all kinds of different experiences. I've been a prisoner. I've been free. I've been a child, an adolescent. I'm now a middle-aged man. I'm 50. Listen, guys, no one has ever been a slave 3,600 years. No. They may have been slaves for 10 years because that's how long 3,600 shars is. It's 10 years. All right. Yeah, that's just crazy. Page 85. This one's embarrassing. This is Billy Carson right here. Chapter 3. I'm going to look, guys. Here's chapter 3. Do you see what it's called? Chapter 3. This is the first appearance of Billy Carson, the founders of Atlantis. I was really excited about trying to find some Atlantis material in here. Guess what I found? The word Atlantis mentioned one time and only. The whole chapter goes by. Not a single mention of Atlantis. A bunch of copy and paste BS about all kinds of different stuff that has nothing to do with Atlantis at all. And then at the very end of the chapter, there's a single reference to his own book, The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. That's the only mention of Atlantis in an entire chapter that is headed Atlantis. That's embarrassing. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Oh, Andy said that Thoth was 36,000 years old. Another crazy. Which would only be 100 years. He'd only be 100 years old. Page 134. Oh, we're done with Billy Carson. That's all he provided in that whole chapter. It's all copy and paste, a bunch of copy and paste crap. So let's go to chapter 4. We're back on Matt again. Page 134. We're moving through this book so I can show you my presentation, which dismantles everything I'm reading to you now, which I'm giving you guys for free. As soon as this video's over, you'll be able to download that PDF. You can share it with friends, family, whoever, critics. There's no, man, you can email it. You can email it to Billy Carson. There's stuff for Graham Hancock in that PDF. Yeah, you can email it to everybody in Gaia. I don't care because it's irrefutable. It's irrefutable. And you know, I got some tricks up my sleeve. If any of these guys want to debate this, I'm down with it. I'm down with it. So, check this out. Here's Matt again on page 134. He says, we also have direct evidence to show that the deluge story discussed in the cuneiform tablets, such as the Atrahasis epic and the Epic of Gilgamesh, was a real event which wiped out the pre-diluvial cities of ancient Mesopotamia and other cultures around the world. That flood evidence can be found at the Ziggurat of Eridu, also known as the Temple of Iabzu, where large amounts of seashells have been photographed strewn across the ruins of this ancient temple complex, as well as signs of vitrification. Considering that Eridu is mentioned in numerous cuneiform tablets as being the first city created by the Anunnaki here, it makes logical sense that it would have existed well before the disastrous events of the Young Dryas period, roughly 12,800 years ago. The presence of hundreds of seashells at the top of the ziggurat in Eridu, Iraq, is indicative of how powerful this deluge event was, with tsunami-like floodwaters coming down both from the Black Sea to the north as well as from the Persian Gulf to the south. He just described the Ogygian deluge in 1687 BC. He further described the Great Flood of Noah, the collapse of the vapor canopy, the day the sky fell in 2239 BC. He could have described 3439 BC when Enki first appeared with 50 Anuna at the Gihon flood. He could have described any one of those or any subsequent flood after that, because we know that there was a great flood in 365 AD mentioned by Ammianus Marcellinus that deposited ships on the Mediterranean way high into the mountains of Greece. So it also pulled the people of Alexandria, Egypt out to sea. So we have a lot of flood events. We don't need something in 12,800 BC. And we sure don't need somebody trying to get us to suspend our disbelief that a mound of ruins just called Eridu by the locals in the Near East, a mound of ruins dates to 12,800 BC, simply because you're amazed that some seashells were found on top of it. Seashells were found all around Tiahuanaco, Pumapunka. Seashells have been found in the open air copper mines of Michigan, the Ohio Valley, the mound builder civilization. Seashells were found all around the Great Pyramid of Giza by Frederick Norton Lewis in the 1700s. Seashells are not evidence of anything other than the fact that at some time after its construction, it got flooded. Well, we have many floods in the historical record. We don't need the Younger Dryas BS, and there is no architecture anywhere in the world standing, none from 12,800 BC. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Okay, so 136. Another statement by Matt. That's why today we find that most megalithic structures around the world that existed before the Younger Dryas events are all off by 23.5 degrees to true north. Since this were built before, okay, it's just a typo. Since these were built before the axis of the planet shifted 12,000 to 13,000 years ago. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. There are no megalithic ruins from 12,800 years, and the alignments of the older ones that differ, I've already explained to you what happened in 713 BC when the year changed from 360 days to 365.24 days a year. That's very widely documented. I got a free PDF download, explains the whole thing. All you need to know. It's a recent video I did within the last month or so that explains that whole why these things changed. You don't need something 12,800 years ago, and there's no evidence for it. I'm pretty sure that seashells were deposited in 2014 in Japan when the tsunami hit. Yeah, took a whole bunch of things out. I'm pretty sure it brought some seashells too. Now, who wrote this right here? This is, okay, on pages 139 and 141. Matt LaCroix is now talking about Atlantis was destroyed, just like Graham Hancock in the Younger Dryas Cataclysm. This is Younger Dryas impact theory, and geologists don't like it. It's not a scientific theory. This is one that's created by like alt media, but it's called Younger Dryas impact theory. This is what Matt LaCroix is talking about. The Ice Age destruction. He dates Atlantis there. Now, here's my problem. I do not like duplicity. I don't like duplicity when I find it. I don't mind coming across people who just they're not aware. But if you put yourself in the position of teaching others, then you're going to be open to scrutiny. It's not like somebody who's just trying to learn making these mistakes. And what I'm talking about is Matt LaCroix is guilty here of citing Diodorus Siculus as his authority on Atlantis being 12,800 BC. Now we have a problem, because if you're going to cite Diodorus Siculus as a reference to this, but omit one of the chief things Diodorus Siculus said about the Egyptians, then we have deceit here. I can't say academic deceit because I don't believe you're qualified. But there's deceit here. And what I mean is Matt LaCroix is using Diodorus Siculus's version of Atlantis, which doesn't date it to 12,000 BC, but he's using particulars in there to make it sound like, well, Diodorus is talking about this event happened in 12,000 BC, although Diodorus never said that. But what Diodorus Siculus did say, and Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson totally omitted, is that the Egyptians reckoned a year as a month. You can't have it both ways. The only way anyone in the world has ever been able to date Atlantis at 9,600 BC is because Plato misunderstood. It was 200 years after the Egyptians told Solon. This mistake was made many times in the transmission of information from the Egyptian colleges to the Greek writers. They often made this mistake, and it was corrected in ancient times. Eudoxus of Cnidus was one of those who corrected it in the days of Plato. It wasn't 9,000 years because the Egyptians only counted by months. This is why everything they said was 23,000. Oh, it was 48,000. It was 48,000 units. It was 23,000 units. Diodorus Siculus specifically stated that the Egyptians reckoned a year as a month. Same thing Eudoxus of Cnidus said. But that's why we have a problem. Matt LaCroix is going to cherry pick what he wants to use as evidence while ignoring this major piece of the puzzle. Because when you use the proper dating method that was employed by the Egyptian priesthood of Sais, and anybody can get an encyclopedia and look up the Sais priesthood and see who they venerated and what their worship was about, and find out that they used a lunar calendar, then it all comes into place. Atlantis was the 13th century BC. It was only 3,300 years ago, not 12,800 years ago. So, all right. Now, if you guys think I'm picking on Matt as opposed to Billy, I'm sorry. But the truth of the matter is, most of this book is Matt LaCroix. So I don't have a lot to pick from Billy. Billy copy and pasted a whole bunch of stuff from his earlier book and a whole bunch of just rote, bland information that anybody can find. Just get an encyclopedia out. Yeah, I know what the Mahabharata is. I can look it up right here. I know the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Yeah, all Billy did was just list a whole bunch of items. Yeah, didn't he? Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy, guys. Page 145. I'm not picking on Matt, but he's just the one that provided all the information. And it just so happens the information is anachronistic. All right. I've heard some of you guys say that you liked Matt LaCroix in the past. LaCroix, how you say his name? I get that. I get it. But yeah, he jumped on board the wrong ship because that ship's gonna sink. There is no way in hell. I'm gonna stay quiet, and there's no way in hell that the powers that be that are putting all this information are ever going to be able to just continue to ignore me. No, my voice is getting louder and louder and louder, and my ability to present this data is getting better and better and better. So yeah, there's going to have to be a meeting of the minds, and I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I'm all for moving forward, but we're gonna be moving forward in the right way. Simple as that. Page 145. Okay, Matt LaCroix. I'm not on board with this part, bro. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth. He's citing it as if it's a real historical text. States that the early civilizations of Egypt were founded by a being known as Thoth the Atlantean. Untrue. It is not. It is patently untrue. Who created a grand civilization in Egypt known as Kemet, or the land of Kim. Why am I even reading this? 45. Yeah, it's crazy. So you guys, you have to understand, Plato is the only source for the Atlantis being 9,000 years. He's the only source. But just like Graham Hancock, Matt and Billy conveniently ignore the scholarly data from the ancient and modern world that collapses Plato's years to months. And we're going to show them here, and you're going to see new ones in this video as well. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Here's another good one. So, I'm going to show you the picture because this is real. These were photographed on the bottom off the coast of Cuba. These right here. I've seen pictures of these before. Pyramids and structures on the sea bottom off the coast of Cuba. And this is what Matt says about them. It's crazy. So he references these strange pyramidal structures found undersea off the coast of Cuba, and Matt cites a geologist who claims that they must be 50,000 years old simply because, and the geologist admits, he believes it because of their depth. The depth that they're found is how the geologists got 50,000 years for a date on those ruins. Now, I'm going to tell you now, that's ridiculous. Matt should have never cited that as evidence. And a real good researcher would have known that was a real bad call. You see, there's been many instances where like U.S. Geological Survey and naval surveys have published reports like, wow, the ocean bottom has changed by hundreds of feet. We have soundings from the year 1902 after Mount Pelee, the volcano, exploded, and then St. Vincent, Mount Sefrere on St. Vincent exploded almost at the same time in 1902. Two different islands. The area of the Atlantic, very close to Cuba, right there where that area is, that area of the Atlantic of Martinique and St. Vincent was 600-foot depth before those volcanoes erupted. Scientific soundings conducted just months after the eruptions published, and they were shocked. The sea bottom was now 4,000 feet deep. Do you understand the implications here? Because we have other scenarios like 1764 and 1765 when a navigator named Davis found an island that was full of people. Leaving Easter Island, traveling along the coast of South America, he named it Davis Island. The following year, English and Dutch navigators reported the island was not there. The coordinates must be wrong, but they weren't. Davis Island sunk. In the Pacific, on the island of Yap in the Carolinas, what about Metallinum? The city of Metallinum. All that has come up and sunk. Archaeologists are convinced that Easter Island used to be way bigger, but it sunk. The ocean levels are not changing. It is the bottom of the oceans that vary. Upheaval and subsidence. And in 1902, that was a 3,400-foot drop in a day. So any geologist dating ruins that are on the bottom off the coast of Cuba at 50,000 years is full of shit. Absolutely. There's no way to date by depth. So let's go to okay, page 154 is another one. Matt, concerning Lemuria, sometimes called Mu, now he's referring to Charles Churchward, is a legendary lost continent of the Pacific Ocean that was destroyed more than 12,000 years ago. There's nothing to support that. There's no scientific evidence to support that whatsoever at all. Best bet was 2239 BC, about 42 centuries ago when the Great Flood occurred. 43 centuries ago. They want to throw everything back there to the Younger Dryas. All right, page 160. We're almost done. So I can start my real presentation. Okay. Oh, again, is this Matt LaCroix? LaCroix? Croix? How you say his name? Or is this Billy? Oh, okay, page 160. So Matt, oh man, Easter Island, which guys, I got videos on Easter Island, show perfectly 1687 BC. Children of the Sun dynasties collapsed. 1687 BC is when Easter Island was destroyed. He's claiming that the heads on Easter Island go back to the Younger Dryas period. There it is again. There it is again. You guys already know better than that. Those are easy to date. All right. Hell, archaeologists today claim they're only 1,000 years old. So that covers all of Matt LaCroix's participation. The last chapter is Billy Carson. And it's a real short one. It doesn't have much in it. But the chapter is called, get this, Unveiling the Matrix of Reality. So let's look at that. Something I found that was curious. I circled something I want you guys, my archaics veterans, those of you who've been on my channel listening for a long period of time, I just want you to see what I circled. Pay attention to what I circled. Okay, this is Billy Carson's last chapter. I don't know how many hundreds of times in my presentations I've been saying that for years, but you know what? I'm not even going to say it out loud in this one. I'm so embarrassed to find it here. Again, circle something else. Circle something else. This is a chapter on the Matrix, reality being Matrix reality. Matrix and simulation are no different. Circle that one too. I'm not even going to say it out loud. Yeah. So this there's nothing to it, guys. I encourage you guys. Yeah, this is what. Yeah, this is just crazy. So, Gaia, the Unexplained, History Channel, and Mystery School of Truth on Forbidden Knowledge. All right, so that's what they're all promoting. And Billy Carson, that's Matt LaCroix. LaCroix, how you say his name? Billy Carson, man, you know what? It's impressive. Man. He's the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge TV, a new conscious streaming TV network on Apple TV, Roku, American Fire TV, iOS, Google Play, and the web, the co-host of Biohack Your Best Life, and is an expert host on Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed, an exclusive Forbidden Knowledge TV series. Mr. Carson has also appeared on Deep Space, an original streaming series of Gaia. This series explores the secret space program, revealing extraordinary technologies and their potential origins. Mr. Carson also serves as an expert host on Gaia's original series, Ancient Civilizations. I promise you, I do not want to hear from anybody from the Gaia Network at all. Yeah. Any connection to this man, Billy Carson, embarrasses me for you. I don't know what you people were thinking. Yeah. Don't contact me. In which a team of renowned scholars deciphers if they're renowned scholars, then go ahead and line that shit up. I'll go ahead and debate them. Deciphers the riddles of our origins and pieces together our forgotten history documented in the monuments and texts around the world. Yeah. Mr. Carson appreciates the dedication and the hard work it takes to accomplish great things. Recently, Mr. Carson earned a certificate of science with an emphasis on neuroscience at MIT. And has a certificate in ancient civilizations from Harvard University. Among his most notable achievements, Billy is the CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale. Specifically, his space agency is involved in research and development of alternative propulsion systems, zero-point energy devices, and other technologies that can change the world. Mr. Carson, you need to do a YouTube video showing these amazing devices and how they work. And don't provide us a golf cart wrapped in tinfoil like they did with the Apollo programs. Because I'm not impressed. Just not impressed. But what I am impressed with is this information I'm about to freely give you guys, and then you'll be able to download it. But that's my presentation. There wasn't much to go through in that book, guys. It just wasn't. But yeah, after reading how Gaia so highly venerates Mr. Carson, if there is anybody listening to my voice that's associated with the Gaia network and you want to debate any of these issues on chronology, on Atlantis, especially the Shar dating system of the Anunnaki, the existence of the Emerald Tablets as an actual historical reality, I said, listen, you know what? I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And just don't think I'm going to hold back. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy, man. Just crazy, man. Absolute garbage. So let me show y'all some awesome stuff, which completely puts this book to shame. So I'm going to present. I think the first thing I got to present is Atlantis file. We're going straight into the Atlantis file. Share my screen. Share screen. Entire screen. Oh, yeah, I'm getting it. Man, I'm getting it. There it is. Share my screen. Got it. All right. All right, good. Okay, so we have some pretty interesting things here. Let's start with this one. Oh, here's a good one. Here's a good one. Ancient authorities on Plato's 9,000 years actually being 9,000 months. The priests of Neith at Sais, who related the Atlantis story, only employed a lunar calendar. Here's the middle one. Eudoxus of Cnidos, Lactantius, Plutarch, Macrobius, Eusebius, and many others all knew the ancient Egyptians reckoned a month as a year. How can you not incorporate that into your Atlantis information? How can you ignore that? Because it completely collapses the whole narrative put out by Graham Hancock that Atlantis is 9,600 BC. Here's the bottom one. Diodorus Siculus wrote, here's the one that Matt LaCroix ignored when he was talking about Atlantis. Diodorus Siculus wrote, it was customary to reckon the year by the lunar cycle, since the year consisted of 30 days. It was not impossible for some men to live 1,200 years. Can I read that again? It was customary to reckon the year by the lunar cycle, since the year consisted of 30 days. It was not impossible that some men lived 1,200 years. There it is, right there in black and white. Diodorus Siculus, without Eudoxus of Cnidos, without any of these other historians I mentioned here, Diodorus Siculus alone collapses the whole 9,600 year BC deal. It's done. It's done. Now, Manetho mentions 9,000 years. Manetho's 9,000 years was corrected by Africanus, that's Julius Africanus, as 9,000 months. There it is, 9,000 months. Can't make this shit up. Here's the next one. Make sure. I want to look real quick at my chat, make sure y'all can see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I got more to show you. I just wanted to make sure that I was actually sharing my screen. All right. Let's do it. Get rid of that one. Historic scholars who wrote the 9,000 years was months. Look at this. Look at this. Thomas Bradderween in the year 1340 AD. Plato's 9,000 years was actually lunar reckoning. Historian Robert Argod, about 13, he said that Atlantis was about 1340 BC and links it to the Sea People's invasion. 1340 BC is over 8,000 years after Graham Hancock, Billy Carson, and Matt LaCroix's version of Atlantis. Pierre Dialy, 1370. He wrote that, this is 1370 AD. He wrote that 9,000 years was a lunar reckoning system, talking about Plato. In the year 1572, historian Pedro Sarmiento Galboa, he wrote that 9,000 years was in reference to lunar counting system, not years. In the year 1577, Augustine Zarate, quoting Eudoxus, supported the 9,000 years being of lunar periods, not solar years. Here's one of my personal favorites. Eugenius Philolethes, 1721. On Babylonian and ancient Greek calendars, he wrote it was moons, not years. Sir Isaac Newton, about the year 1740, in his Chronology of Ancient Kingdoms. Yes, Sir Isaac Newton wrote a book on chronology. I have it in my library. He wrote a world chronology. So on the Chronology of Ancient Kingdoms, he wrote, the Egyptians exaggerated the 9,000 and had been caught doing this many times. John Jackson, another one of my favorites, in the year 1752 in Chronological Antiquities wrote, the Egyptian years were months. Yeah, man. It's crazy. It's crazy when you see it. Look at this. This is an old book from the 1700s called Long Livers. Long Livers. You just saw that if you go by the Egyptian system, it shows how men could live 1,200 years because it was months, not years. Here's a book from the 1700s called Long Livers. Here's what it says. Some of those who, with Job, say that man comes forth like a flower and dies as soon as born, maintain that this long course of years of the ancients was regulated by the lunary movement of 29 or 30 days. Do you see that? In the ancient world, long lifespans were measured by moons, not years. That's why they live so long. There it is. Here's another, same book, Long Livers. From reading Lactantius and Plutarch on the life of Numa, the second king of Rome, might be insinuated that the year of the ancients was of no longer duration than one of our months, or at most one of our 4 seasons. The Chaldeans and the Arcadians followed this use, as well as some other people, of whom Macrobius speaks in the 12th chapter of his first book of Saturnalia. That's a whole lot of ancient historians right here that all said it was months. Look at this. This is everything I'm showing you is in the free PDF download I'm going to make available a couple of minutes after this video is over. Everything I'm showing you is yours. Elements of Plato's Atlantis narrative make 9,500 BC an impossible theory off by over 8,000 years. What are these elements? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you real quick. I got something to show you. See, I'm not unaware of Atlantis. My bibliography has about 20 different books on Atlantis. And in that published bibliography available on Podia, these books aren't in that bibliography. These 2 books right here are not there. I got to show you. I'm gonna come up out of this real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. since I'm sharing my screen. Let's see. I'm going to remove that. Stop sharing. Okay. These two books here. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Atlantis could have only happened in the 12th or 13th century BC. These books are by scholars right here. How do we know? See all these books? Every single one of these books is about Atlantis. Every single book is about Atlantis. I promise you, Matt and Billy have not read all these books. My bibliography has many more books that all have Atlantis in the title, at least 20 of them, in my published bibliography online and in my published books. Guys, what I'm trying to tell you is it's not just the anachronism of 9,000 that dates the Atlantis story. So let me show you that chart. Plato gives us all the historical details we need to know. And when you put them all together, there's only one time period this could have unfolded, and that is the 12th century BC. See, the time of the fall of Troy and the War of Ilium, the beginning and start of the Great Mediterranean Dark Age. None of these other things mentioned by Plato could be possible in the Younger Dryas period. They could never have happened 12,000 years ago. Hell, the main enemy of Atlantis was Athens, and Athens wasn't even founded until the 14th century BC. So let's look at it. Don't take my word for it. Let me show you what Plato said. Since they want to cite Plato all the time, let's just go with what Plato said. Show you this chart. Like I said, you guys are going to get this chart. This is Plato on Atlantis. He said that the Atlantis story involves massive canal works, domestication of horses, iron tools and weapons. He mentions Poseidon worship. He mentions the winged horse symbol. What is it? What else? He mentions Egypt. Let's see. What is it? Oh, and Athens. What else he mentioned? Athens, and I forget. Well, anyway, this is an oversimplification because in the books that I've shown in my prior videos on Atlantis, I've shown you books that itemize 50. I'm going to show, matter of fact, I have the chart here. 50 different things that could have only happened in 13. Botanical, geological, geographical. Plato's very specific on all kinds of things. But here's the archaeology right here. 4,000 to 3,500 BC was the earliest canal works, not the Younger Dryas period, not 12,000 years ago. You can't put Atlantis in 12,000 years. There were no canal works. The domestication of horses didn't exist. There was no iron smelting. There was no iron ores being used in 12,000 BC. Poseidon worship didn't even start till about the 26th century BC. 7,800 years after Atlantis was supposedly destroyed by, according to Graham Hancock. No, it was Poseidon worship. So in 1250 BC, we have Poseidon enslaved to build Troy's walls. This is the oldest known winged horse relief. This is what Plato was describing. In 1229 BC, Poseidon attacks Troy. Who's Poseidon? The Sea Peoples Federation. The Sea Peoples attack Egypt and the Hittites at the same time they attack Troy. The war for Troy and Ilium, the fall of Troy, is an ancient story, but it goes back to the 12th century BC. How did they defeat Troy? They used the Trojan horse. What was the horse was domesticated? What was the horse a symbol of? The horse was a symbol of Poseidon. They used, the Trojan horse is how they did it. Plato specifically says that Atlantis was destroyed a short while after the war, when it grew haughty and it grew basically wicked. That's interesting because 94 years after the Great War, we have the Phoenix phenomenon destroying almost the entire world in 1135 BC, starting the Great Mediterranean Dark Age. Why is this a strong clue that this was the destruction of Atlantis? Because according to the Egyptian and Mediterranean traditions and records, the sea peoples were never seen again after this event. They were gone. Here's 340 BC. Eudoxus says Egyptians reckon a month is a year. He said that during the life of Plato. 1271, Egypt attacks the Philistines. Who are the Philistines? They're a part of the Sea Peoples Federation. 1275, Battle of Kadesh. 1340 BC, Atlanteans attack Athens. Athens founded 1375. That's a key right there. The founding of Athens. It couldn't have been in the Younger Dryas. It's ridiculous. Whole thing's ridiculous. Anyway, all these other items mentioned by Plato prove that it could have never happened there. Here's a new chart. Atlantis destroyed 1135 BC in Phoenix cataclysm that started the Great Mediterranean Dark Age, and the Sea Peoples Federation never heard from again. Do you see the color chart right here? My Archaics veterans have seen this chart many, many times. The red spheres are Phoenix. The black ones are the Nemesis X object. Here you have the Mayan long count periods. You have the cursed earth periods. You got the Anunnaki Ner 600-year periods. Yeah, you have all. Yeah, this. There's a lot to unpack in this chart. My channel and all my published dates basically serve to prove that this is the history of the world. This is recorded history of resets. But look where it fits. 5239 BC right here is the beginning of recorded history. It starts the Anunna-Ner chronology. The Anunna-Ner calendar is something Billy and most people have never heard of until I brought it to the table and showed the 600-year great year period where the Ners that are found in cuneiform over and over and over. Every 600 years, we got them all the way up to the last days. So here's the beginning of that calendar. 600 years is 216,000 turnings of the stars. 216 is found everywhere in the Sumerian records as a great age. 216,000 shars. 2 great ages was an epic. It was 432,000 shars, which was 1,200 years. But here it is. The whole history of the world right here fits right here. But Graham Hancock, Billy Carson, and Matt, and everybody on Gaia are going to put it way back here where it doesn't belong. 9,600 BC is 4,361 years before the Anunnaki Ner calendar even starts. Yeah, there's nothing here in the history of the world. It's 8,000 years before Athens, and Athens was the one the Atlanteans were at war with. It's ridiculous. Just ridiculous, guys. So you'll get this chart here. Gives you a great idea. Look at the chart, shows you that in the timeline, look how many times the world was destroyed. There's so many times the world's gone through bullshit. It's all here. All right. So I got those 2 charts. I got that done. I cited those. Oh, here's from John Jackson. John Jackson wrote, I shall prove. Okay. Did he observe very true? The Egyptians reckoned a month as a year in the first ages of the world, and in the reigns of their first fabulous kings, whom they called gods and demigods. This computation enables us to understand perfectly the oldest Egyptian chronology, and to reduce it to a very near and exact conformity with the sacred chronology of Scripture. There it is right there. This is 270 years ago. He also wrote about he's quoting Marcus Varro, knew that the Egyptians had anciently reckoned the lives of men by a lunar year of 30 days. You can't make this stuff up. Varro is Marcus Varro, Roman historian. Marcus Varro knew that the Egyptians had anciently reckoned the lives of men by a lunar year of 30 days. There it is. But when they computed by this year, they represented the lives of the first deified men to consist of many thousands and sometimes myriads of years. Thus, Manetho reckons the reign of Vulcan, the oldest Egyptian god, to be 9,000 years, which Africanus observes were resolved by historians into months. What? Yeah, man, I'm not making anything up. It's all right here. This is all in the historical record. I have made nothing up. Let me show you these further resources for where we're going here. Now, this is pretty small. I'm going to read them to you. This is pretty small here. I don't think you guys can see this. Let me see if I can make these bigger real quick so you can see them. All right, cool. On 9,000 Years of Plato, in 1930, Otto Silbermann wrote, Plato's dating of the rise and fall of Atlantis, 9,000 years before Solon's time, could be dismissed right away if such a civilization had existed. It would have been entirely forgotten long before the rise of Egypt. Tony O'Connell, in his Joining the Dots, numerous citations that 9,000 years of Plato was actually months. Tony O'Connell's got some really good research. Historian Olaf Rudbeck has the Atlantean invasion about 1350 BC. In the book Lost Atlantis, James Bramwell, 1973, on page 94, he says there is no archaeological evidence of Greeks before the first dynasty of Egypt. Showing you, had to be the 13th century BC. It couldn't be 9,000. Atlantis, the Andes Solution by J.M. Allen, page 70 through 71. A Minoan prince looks like a Mayan nobleman, and massive flooding happened in Central America about 1200 BC. On pages 151 to 153, he lists 50 facts about Plato's story, connecting it to the invasion from the Americas. On page 154 to 163, he lists another 50 facts of Plato's Atlantis narrative that could never apply to 9,600 BC, but only to the second millennium BC, or 1400 to 1200 BC. That's the Sea People's invasions. In the book Atlantis of the North, Jurgen Spanoth in 1979 also wrote that it would have been the Sea People's Federation during the Greek times, not 9,000 BC. We also find that all the evidence is during the early Greek period in the book The Flood of Heaven by Eberhard Zanger. He's an archaeologist with a PhD. Frank Joseph's The Destruction of Atlantis is fantastic research. It's also the Sea People's Federation is what he quotes as well. So that covers our Atlantis file. That's the whole Atlantis file. So we're gonna get out of this Atlantis file, and we're gonna go into. I have two more files to show. We're gonna go into the Shar file now. The last file is real short. Let me stop sharing. I ain't been drinking my coffee. So we still got a few minutes, guys. I'm going to go fast through this, but the Shars, Anunnaki dating, this changes everything. It changes thousands of books that have been published. It changes all this misinformation. Man, all these hundreds of millions of dollars spent on movies and documentaries that are promoting an absolutely falsified version of Anunnaki history. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. I'm about to show you. All right, so let's get into it. Almost 2 hours. We're making good time. I'm going to go fast through this one. I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to go into this Shar theory. Like I said, all these charts are free. At the end of this video, I'm going to post them. Free PDF download. Share screen. All right, cool. All right, here we are. So the first thing we need to look at, we'll go in order. Okay, this is 1753. Dennis Diderot, citing the authorities of Palaephatus, Suidas and Gilbert, a scholar named Gilbert, and two ancient scholars. Dennis Diderot in 1753 wrote, "The solar day was their astronomical year, whence it follows, according to the supposition, that the 473,000 years of the Chaldeans reduced to 473,000 of our days, or just 1,297 and about 9 months. 1,297 years and about 9 months of a solar year." That's pretty compelling, guys. Pretty compelling. Look at this. Oh, I moved on. Let's go to the top. Paleo-Hebrew, derived from Babylonian. Shar in Sumerian. Remember, Babylonians derived from Sumerian. So Shar in Sumerian is very close to the Hebrew word for day, Shah. In Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6 reads that the prophet is to calculate a day for a year. What? Look at the middle one. According to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, a year for a day. You shall bear your iniquity for 40 years. That's the book of Numbers 14:34. Oh man, it just gets better and better. Rabbi Dosa in the 4th century AD said, "God's day of vengeance is a year." I'm gonna. What? The year of the Lord? What? The great and secret day of the Lord, which is also called throughout Scripture the year of return, the year of the Lord. They're used interchangeably. Yeah. Rabbi Dosa in the 4th century AD said God's day of vengeance is a year. Hippolytus, Bishop of Porto, wrote, "I shall make a covenant of 1 week." By 1 week, he indicates 7 years. 7 days equals 7 years. And the last one, in Scripture, it is the last days that lead up to the year of the Lord. This concept was ancient, guys. Concept was ancient. It's just being ignored today by a lot of people who are trying to promote something else. Okay, Zechariah Sitchin has the first human, Adapa, born in the 93rd Shar and died in the 108th Shar. If Shars are 3,600 years, then the first human lived 54,000 years. Total crap. If Shars are days, turnings of the stars, then this human lived 150 years. And that's not really unbelievable. So, Zechariah Sitchin wrote that the final 7 Shars before the flood was a period of drought, famine, and pestilence. His own interpretation of 3,600 years to a Shar means that this drought, famine, and pestilence lasted for 25,200 years. A totally untenable idea. The whole world would have been destroyed forever. 7 Shars of 3,600 days each means that this period of devastation before the Great Flood was 70 years. That's more believable. And the last one. The first recorded element of time measurement in the book of Genesis was the evening and the morning was the first day. Applying the day to the Shar, we find that the Anunnaki appeared not 432,000 years before the flood, but 432,000 days, being 1,200 years between their descent in 3439 BC and the deluge in 2239 BC. This 1,200 years is confirmed in the ancient traditions, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. Here's an inescapable fact. Citing Berosus, Alexander Polyhistor wrote that the Babylonians, I'm going to blow this up, the Babylonians had records going back 150,000 shars from beginning of the reign of Alexander in Babylon. Reducing the 150,000 shars by 360 days a year, we get 416 years. Alexander of Macedon became Alexander the Great when he took Babylon and sat on the throne in the year 331 BC. Exactly 416 years earlier, King Nabonassar of Babylon in the year 747 BC destroyed all the Babylonian astronomical and historical records of the libraries within his reach. This proves, without a doubt, that Berosus was correct in his dating and that shars are equal to days. This proves that Berosus knew that the 150,000 shars was only 416 years. It proves it because he's the one that said that 150,000 shars is how long the Babylonian astronomical records go back. And he was right, because it's widely known by archaeologists that Nabonassar, king of Babylon, bragged that in 747 BC he destroyed all the libraries that he could find. Yeah, Berosus knew. Berosus knew that shars were days. And that's how he got 416 years and accurately dated the destruction of all the astronomical records. That's why I titled that An Inescapable Fact. Oh, we got some good stuff in this file. Yes, we do. Here's Philolethes. Oh, this is John Jackson, Chronological Antiquities. Right here. 1721 or something like that. I can't remember. 1751 or 21. This is what he wrote. But perceiving that these large numbers of years were uniformly carried on and made use of by the most judicious and learned ancient writers, without any intimation or suspicion made by them that they were fabulous, I judged that they were founded on real and true calculations, and only differed from those other nations in the manner of reckoning, and not in the chronology itself. And I found at last, with great satisfaction, that the most ancient computation of days for years among the Chaldeans, Babylonians, and of months for years among the Egyptians, Atlantis, warranted by the testimony of writers of the greatest credit, and most conversant in the histories and antiquities of these nations. Here is a chronologist 270 years ago that said that all the greatest chronological researchers before him had concluded that the Babylonian years were days, the Egyptian years were months. Here it is. I didn't make any of this up. It's right here in the historical record. It's right here. So let me show you how obnoxious. Let me show you how obnoxious this is right here. I've shown you this chart before, but I'm going to show you a different version now. This is Sitchin's science fiction chronology. This is what Matt LaCroix and Billy Carson and a whole host of others, Paul Wallace and a whole host of others that are promoting Zechariah Sitchin's version, Zechariah Sitchin's psyop version of Anunnaki history. Every single box you see here is 12,705 years, which is 2 times what we have in the historical record. Every single box. This is what 432,000 years before the flood looks like. This is what it looks like. Do you see this little tiny box on the far right? That little tiny box right there on the far right is the entire historical record. It's the Capture Flood, the Gihon Flood, the Great Flood, the Ogygian Flood, the entire written record of all civilizations, the whole Phoenix history, biblical chronology, everything we know about Sumer, Harappa, Ugarit, Byblos, Urartu, Egypt, the Mayans, everything is in that box. But you're being told that cuneiform clay tablets in that box are telling you a story about 432,000 years earlier. Simply because these men didn't take the time to realize that shars were turnings of the stars, a single day that started in the evening to morning. You start counting time as soon as the sun goes down. When the sun goes down the next day, the stars have revolved a single 24-hour rotation. That's a shar. It's all about the eye of the dragon in ancient times. The dragon turned around the pole star. There is nothing 432,000 years ago that would even be relevant to anything in this little box right here. Nothing. It's ridiculous. So let's look at it. Let's look at it with some perspective. Look at this. You've seen this. Well, first of all, let me show you this. You've all seen this. Here's the archaics chronology. I will defend the integrity of this chronology with overwhelming data. How do I know? Because all my published books already do it. How do I know? Because all my videos on YouTube already do it. I have not had to deviate from a single year. The chronology is fixed. It is verifiable. It's all here. These are multiple different timekeeping and calendrical systems and reset calendars all right here. Here they are. And it only covers 7,344 years, which is 2448, the number of Exodus, times 3, which is the apothegm of the Great Pyramid. Most people don't know this. The Great Pyramid is exactly 7,344 inches apothegm. The sloping distance is 7,344 inches. How do we know this? Because the sloping distance has been scientifically measured at 612 feet. That's how we know that. So here is some perspective. Look at that. Look at that. You see my chart? That's 7,344 years of history. Here it is a little bit smaller. Here it is a little bit smaller. Right here. Here it is even smaller. Here's that same 7,344 years even smaller. And here is the actual size of 7,344 years on this chart. Of 432,000 years of Zechariah Sitchin, the Gaia Network, Paul Wallace, Matt LaCroix, Billy Carson, and so many others. Here it is. This is what they want you to believe. Stories about Enlil and Anu and Iagigi and Enki that all happened almost 500,000 years ago, as if it has any relevance to what's going on now, right here. And that at the end of this long period of history, only right here, where this line is, we had the Younger Dryas impact that destroyed this whole civilization. Let me tell you guys something. If anything in our world would have lasted 432,000 years, there'd be evidence of it all over the world, and there's none. Zero. It's just ridiculous. Whole theory. Look how small my chart is. Little bitty tiny chart right there. You couldn't even see it till I blew it up. There it is. That's where my chart fits. The whole entire historical record, even the Anunnaki calendar of 600-year periods is all right there. I couldn't even get my version of the chart to fit in that box. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, for those who are new to my channel and you don't know, this entire chart covers, what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32, at least 32 different historical dates, the beginnings of calendars, major events in world history that all fit into an 817-year period between 3725 BC and 29. This is the 817 years before the Great Pyramid was even built. We have a lot of data, guys. I'm not just a chronologist, I'm a historian. I have all this documented in my Chronicon. There's a lot of events we have right here. All this stuff. The entire Anunnaki history fits in here. because we reduce shars to their proper turnings of the stars, and all these histories of Zechariah Sitchin fit right here perfectly. I've showed when you reduce everything, Enki right here becomes Enoch, and I have whole videos showing the parallels between Enki and Enoch. They are the architect of the Great Pyramid. It's all here. It's amazing. Y'all can check this out. It's a free download. Y'all can check that out. Here's the Sumerian king list right here. During the 1656 years of the pre-flood world, we have the Sumerian king list right here. The Sumerian king list. Now Matt LaCroix was showing the Sumerian king list, and he was showing the 7 kings, and they ruled 28,800 shars, 36,000 shars. When you add all the shars up on the Sumerian king list, look at the bottom. And the 7 kings ruled 241,200 shars till the flood. This is why all these guys keep pushing this narrative of hundreds of thousands of years. You know, they don't know. These are days. Now, I've already showed you the scholars hundreds of years ago knew this. The scholars 2,000 years ago knew this. But we've had so much history since then, somebody has completely forgotten to check the notes. Now, 241,200 shars till the flood is only 670 years. Do you see the 670 years right here? The 7 kings. 670 years of the 7 kings of the Anunnaki from 2909 BC to 2239 BC, the Great Flood. It's right here. It's how do we know it's also that's the right period? Because we can look at the Shu King of ancient China, and in the Shu King text of ancient China, it specifically states that 7 dragon kings ruled for 646 years, and the dates of those perfectly line up with this period here. The overlap is absolutely incredible. I show it in my Chronicon. You can't make this stuff up. Why they called dragon kings? Because to the ancient Chinese, anybody who had a long beard was dragon-faced. And that's why Chinese dragons have beards. What do the Anunnaki look like everywhere in all the Sumerian texts? They don't look like gods. They don't look like this Billy Carson version of comic book history. No, they look like tall white guys with beards. That's exactly what they look like everywhere. And anybody who has seen the alabaster reliefs of the Sumerian gods and all that, you see all these faces. Do you think it's coincidence that lapis lazuli was used for the eyes of all these Anunnaki? Lapis lazuli is a semi-precious stone. They needed the blue. It was too expensive to use sapphires. They used lapis lazuli for the eyes of all these Anunnaki gods and all these busts and statues. So, yeah, we're not talking about gods. We're talking about ordinary humans that were technologically advanced, and they amazed everybody. So it's cargo cult phenomenon all over again. That's all it was. And after the transmission of centuries after a reset, it was blown out and blown into proportion. There's a lot of mysterious and awesome stuff on this chart. It's free. You'll have it in the download. So I've covered that chart, covered that, covered these. Oh, we got a juicy chart here. And then we're almost done. Look at this. Here's a whole chart. I'm not going to go into detail. I've already done a video on this chart. But these are all citations from ancient authors and texts showing that all these different authors and texts got the same year for the Great Flood. And how did they do it? Some of them calculated by lunar reckoning. Some of them calculated by shar counts of days. Some of them calculated by years, but it doesn't matter the method of calculation. In every instance, they got the same time for the Great Flood, 2239 BC. The very fact that 4 of these used shars of 250,000 shars, 150,000 shars, 432,000 shars, the very fact that hundreds of thousands of shars were used to get this date of 2239 BC proves that these ancient chronologists were counting days and calling them shars. Don't believe me? Look at the chart. Chart cites the sources, who said it, where you can find the information. Chart's free, guys. I don't want to go too far in this. I've already overkill. I've already made my point in this video. But this is just this is amazing stuff here, guys. Okay, so we're going to sum up this part right here. Okay, so I've already talked about all that. We're done with that. Last file. You guys still with me? Okay, cool. All right, I want to go ahead and close this video with this last file. We're going to share this file now. There's not a whole lot to share. It is interesting. So let's go through John Jackson's research from 1751. Look what he wrote. Manetho had seen the Chaldean history of Berosus, who from the most ancient Babylonian records reckoned in 10 dynasties 120 sari of 10 years each, or 1,200 Chaldean years of 360 days each, from the beginning of the Chaldean kingdom in the antediluvian ages to the flood. What? This means that the Chaldeans even understood that the Shar was just a day. Look at this chart. The 1,200 years they're talking about is right here. Here's a chart I drew a long time ago in one of my published books. Look at the very bottom. 1,200 years from 3439 BC, the appearance of the Watchers, the Anunnaki. They descend from a mountain. In Book of Enoch, it's called Mount Ardon. They didn't come from space. Anunnaki didn't come from the sky. They didn't fly in the ships. Nowhere in Anunnaki, Texas, or anything about ships and drop ships and shuttles and traveling to the stars and all that. Now, Zechariah Sitchin made a bunch of that BS up. There are no Sumerologists that have ever endorsed Zechariah Sitchin. So here it is. 1/3 mankind killed in the disaster was exactly 1,200 years to the Great Flood. 432,000 days. It's right at the bottom. It's 432,000 days is precisely 3 Mayan Bactans. Each Bactan is 144,000 days. I'm going to leave that alone. I got too many videos on the Maya. So now here's where it was. This is when the Anuna appeared. This is when Enki appeared, 3439 BC. How do we know? Because 3439 BC was the year 456 Annus Mundi. What is the Hebrew chronology? What is the biblical? What is the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jasher, the chronology for 456? The birth of Enoch, who was fathered by Jared. Yeah, guys, it's all not can't make this stuff up. Everything lines up absolutely perfect. As soon as Enki appears in the historical record, we have all this. As soon as Enki appears, look, we have all this history that involves Enoch. All these calendars started at the exact same time. During Enoch's reign. Right here. It's crazy. You can't make this stuff up. So here's another part right here. So we have and taken from the annals of the temple of Belus, but it was impossible for Manetho to find any kings who reigned in Egypt before the flood, and therefore he feigned a catalog of kings who really lived several centuries after the flood to be antediluvian deities or god kings, and made their times equal to the 10 antediluvian kings of Berosus, and to be just 1,200 old Egyptian years of 360 days each, from Vulcan to the flood. This is important. Who's Vulcan? Vulcan is Enoch. Remember, Phoenix actually comes from Old Greek, House of Enoch, Pa-Henoch. This is in my second published book. I show you the sources on this. Phoenix and Enoch have a very close history. So do the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid associated to Enoch. Remember, Enoch in the Egyptian Coptic was called Surid. and I show you all the items of Surid's life and how he built the pyramids and all that, and how it perfectly lines up with the Book of Jasher text about what Enoch did. They're the same individual. But Phoenix and Vulcan are interchangeable. They are just titles of Enoch. Let's go to, let's see, I think I already read this one. Whether Manetho had any other foundation than what I have supposed for fixing the beginning of Vulcan's reign, just 1,200 years of 360 days each before the flood, and so making it commence 1,072 years after the creation, cannot be shown. But yet, as Vulcan was a Phoenician deity, brought with several others into Egypt by the first Hermes, and appeared by the old Phoenician annals, made use of it by Sankuniathon. Sankuniathon, to have lived many centuries before the flood. Sankuniathon was a Phoenician historian. The takeaway here is Vulcan's reign, just 1,200 years of 360 days each before the flood. There it is again. You can't miss it. There's your 1,200 years. 3439 BC, appearance of Enki, which according to this is the appearance of Vulcan, who began to rule 1,200 years before the flood. So we got those. We have two more little citations. All right, the Paschal Chronicle says, this kingdom of Babylonia and Chaldea was founded by the giants, and so it was in the days of Jared, which agrees to the time above mentioned. Babylonia history goes back to the days of Jared. What was the days of Jared? 456 Annus Mundi is the year Jared fathered Enoch. 1,200 years before the flood, which in the Sumerian Shar system is the exact year Enki appeared. Enki and Enoch are one. Next. The observation has not hitherto been made, and is both remarkable and necessary for the understanding the Egyptian chronology, and highly deserves the attention of the learned reader. Whether Manetho had any other foundation than what I have supposed for. Oh, I just read this. This is a bigger version. Same thing I just said, guys. Sorry. I should have eliminated that from the file. So, let's see here. Oh, the Atrahasis epic holds that the Anunnaki were upset over every 1,200 years due to human overpopulation. The Atrahasis epic is about the Great Flood. Arabic traditions concern that the Ad, a race of people called the Ad, hold that their patriarch lived centuries before the flood, namely 1,200 years. Wow. There it is. I'm going to blow that up so y'all can see it. This is ancient Arabian traditions. The Ad, I know I have some Muslims listening that know that Quran pretty good, but right here it says the Ad hold that their patriarch lived centuries before the flood, namely 1,200 years. The Ad, according to the Quran passages, were a race of giants who left behind mysterious and large stone monuments. At this time, one named Ashidad ordered the construction of a terrestrial paradise called Iram, after the name of his great-grandfather, a place later known as Iram of the Columns, structures that have never been equaled since. For those of you who don't know, that's all I need to read from that. That's what this is. The ancient Arabic traditions mirror the Phoenician, mirror the Chaldean, mirror the Egyptian. Here is Enoch, Vulcan, Hermes, Enki. That's when he appeared. He has many titles and names. 1,200 years before the flood. Giants were existing. Remember, Book of Genesis. Giants lived in those days. So now we have, here's the Watchers. They're called the Watchers in Enoch. Here they are. Here's Enki's reign. What happened right after that? Here's Iram of the Columns. I told you guys in my very first published book, this whole book is about what the ancient world knew about the Great Pyramid. You see that pyramid right there? The two giant pyramids were considered the pillars of heaven. Pillars are columns. Iram of the columns is the original Arabian version of the Giza site, Great Pyramid site, that were built by their ancestors. Right there, Iram of the columns. That's what it's talking about. How do we know that it's talking about that? Well, it says right here. Let's go back to this chart under the SHAR system that shows you right here. What is this date? The 7 kings of the Anunnaki. Here's the date, 2909 BC to 2239. So, during the reign of the 7 kings of the Anunnaki, what do we have? 670 years before the flood. What starts in 2909 BC? That's the reign of the 7 kings. Well, let's go back over here to this chart. When was the Great Pyramid built? That's an easy one. That's an easy one. Look at that date. So the 7 kings started ruling as soon as Enoch, Enki, was out of the picture. As soon as he was out of the picture, the very next year, the 7 kings begin to rule. 4 years later, they start building the Great Pyramid project. Here it is. 2908 BC is when Enoch vanishes. 2909 BC, the 7 kings begin to rule. 2905 BC is when the Great Pyramid project begins. It takes 90 years, which is 1080 months. It's finished in the year 2815 BC, which is what? The year 1080. Remember, everything is self-referencing. It's all self-referencing. So, okay. I think we're done there. Well, I almost exited all the way out of there, didn't I? Stop sharing. Recommended read. I did have some recommended. Oh no, I've already covered that recommended reading. I sure did. Already covered that. Well, I'll be damned. The end snuck up on me. Guys, that's my presentation. That's my presentation on that most horrible book. These guys really need to learn how to research before they start putting themselves on a pedestal trying to teach others. This isn't some matter of opinion. Yeah, those coming to my channel triggered because I attack your heroes. Yeah, I'm not buying into that. I'm not buying into that. And nor do I have any tolerance whatsoever for your intolerance. When you come to my channel, I just block you. I don't care. I don't even care. This is not a matter of opinion. When you are overwhelmed with data, but you continue to push a false version of events, you're a part of an agenda and you need to be called out for it. It's as simple as that. This is not, oh, well, I thought, or is a matter. No, it's not. It could have been up until this point. Well, we have now reached a point in the last 2 months that I have released so much data and freely gave it to the public. There's these people that are on these other venues doing this, steadily promoting this, steadily putting out the books, steadily putting out the videos. Now, this is why so many channels out there don't reach out to me. This is why that instead of admitting they've made the mistakes, instead they just want to remain quiet and pretend they never heard the archaics data. Yeah. And this is critically hurting their channels. I know for a fact many channels have lost a lot of participation. They're feeling it. And instead of just coming to the table and saying, hey man, you know what? You did that. You showed me that I was totally misinformed. Instead of that, ego drives them to double down. And that only hurts them even more. Yeah. Yeah, message to Billy Carson, message to Matt LaCroix. I'm telling you now, doubling down from this point on is only going to hurt you more. You think your empires are untouchable, but they're not. They're not. When people in the general public start learning the truth about something, there's no stopping it. Yeah. At this point, I have already released so much free data and it's available. And I've already sold over 1,000 drives of all my research and data. At this point, I'm not even relevant anymore. The information's already out. That's my presentation, guys. Hope you liked it. Sorry, it went over a little bit. I got things to do and places to go. I love you guys, and I'm going to hit that awesome outro. And give me about 5 or 10 minutes to post that free PDF so you guys can have all these visuals. And you guys, too, can be a beast and get this information out there, man. Because there's a lot of people who just don't know. Doesn't make them a bad fella. They just don't know. And when they see this, then they know. Yeah, it means everything. Oh, I'm getting good at this.